So I've tried a lot of USB hubs, and pretty much I think they're all junk. Take this Ugreen hub for example, it's a 4-port USB-A hub, and it worked okay when I first got it, but now it disconnects randomly and some of the ports don't work as well as the other ones. It's basically trash. I was hoping that this Dockcase Studio 8-in-1 USB hub would be different. It's much more expensive, and it does feel better built. You know, the first thing I thought when I saw this thing was great because it does have an SD card reader and a CF Express card reader. It actually reads both. It's also got a USB-A port, USB-C port, power delivery, although I never use that power delivery thing, HDMI, and SD as well as micro SD. And finally, it's got a host connection. The big thing you're probably going to notice about this thing is it's got a screen. To be honest, when I first saw the screen, I was thinking, why do you need a screen on a USB hub? And I have mixed opinions about this screen because it has a basic minimalist operating system that takes a couple seconds to boot, and the USB hub isn't usable until the screen boots. And of course, the screen takes power, although it does shut off when you're using it for a while. But it does take power, and the device does get pretty hot after a while. I've seen the temperature of this device, at least according to its onboard temperature sensor, get up to around 60 to 70 degrees Celsius. It does feel much hotter in my hands than the average USB hub. But you've got to know a few things about this USB hub before you buy it. Okay, the first thing, and it's a small thing, but the USB-A port doesn't feel quite right. It feels a little shallow. When I insert some USB-A devices in this port, they wiggle around a lot as if it's not going completely in the port. So I think the USB-A slot wasn't exactly perfectly designed. But there's another thing that's way more important than that, and that is the CF Express slots. And there are two things that went wrong with the CF Express Type B slot. The first thing is that it's not as fast as most other CF Express Type B readers. What happens is that when you're transferring files at regular intervals, the reader seems to slow down a little bit. I don't know why that is, but it slows down every few seconds as if it's thinking or something. Maybe it's because the data transfer rate is actually displayed on screen while you're transferring files, which I think is kind of ridiculous because you can already see that on your computer. I don't see why the USB hub needs to monitor the data transfer rate, but it does. But there was something that was even more disappointing. It doesn't seem to work with all CF Express Type B cards. It did work with my Delkin Black card, but it doesn't work with my Delkin Power card, and I've tried 2 Delkin Power cards in this reader, and while the reader does detect the card when I plug the card into the reader, it never mounts to the computer. Okay, so what are my overall conclusions? Well, I was disappointed. I have to admit, I was disappointed because it's got a fair amount of problems, especially with reading CF Express Type B cards. And I think it's a little bit clunky in some ways. For example, the screen. I think a lot of people will think, yeah, it's cool. It's a screen on a USB hub. But the screen kind of gets in the way because it doesn't really offer any functionality that I've ever actually needed in the entire time I was using it. And it uses more power too, so if you connect it to your laptop, it's going to use more power than an average USB hub. So basically, although I like the Dockcase hub in theory because it feels a little bit better built than the average USB hub, because it has all these fundamental problems, I'm forced to conclude that there is still no such thing as even a decent USB dock/hub. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you again next time.